Hi, everybody. Mitch Tanenbaum here. Thanks for joining me today. This is the security news update for February 27th, 2022. With that, I think we'll just jump right into it. Everybody knows by this time that you can find the newsletter at cybersecurity-mitch-tanenbaum-blog.com/SNU. And you can find other podcasts at Cybersecurity, the way we spell it, .us. So with that, we are seeing sextortion cases on the rise again. They kind of come and go. This one is a little different. It's being reported by Sophos and in France, although I don't see any reason why it's not going to show up here. They're saying the scammers are saying that they think that you've been watching illegal porn and cites the legal penalties for doing that. And they say, you have 72 hours to go explain yourself as to what you've been doing. Otherwise, they're going to turn you over to the public prosecutors to serve you with an arrest warrant. Now, I don't know about France necessarily. The United States, they have better things to do than worry about that. So I'm guessing that's not a huge concern here, but nonetheless, people get those kind of emails that might concern them, whether they do or don't watch porn, because they'll be concerned about it. In the area of reference guides, I have a great reference guides, which is from the FBI on lessening your digital exhaust. Digital exhaust means all the breadcrumbs you leave around the internet as you go to things like social media and other sites. I attended a 4-hour course. This is a short version of a much longer course that the FBI does for its own internal folks and for its forensics folks. They take a course that lasts a month. But the nice thing out of that is that they've created this 100-page, more than 100-page reference book on how you reduce your digital exhaust. I have uploaded that. It's available. It is a TLP threat level green, which means that it can't be posted. You can't share this with your customers, but you can share this internally with your employees. And you might want to do that. There's going to be some subset of employees who will find this useful and will want to reduce their digital exhaust. In the world of patches, we have a big one here called Cyclops Blink. It seems to be targeting WatchGuard firewalls, but it's pretty general. So don't be surprised if it affects other systems besides WatchGuard shortly. They have WatchGuard, on the other hand, has developed a tool that will help you figure out whether or not you are infected with this malware. It's not as easy as patching things to get rid of it. So depending on the version of the WatchGuard platform you're running, you may need to get their tech support folks to help you, and expect this Cyclops Blink to expand its foothold into other products now that it's out there. The FCC has proposed its largest ever fine for robocalling, $45 million. It's a Florida-based healthcare lead generator, which has made about 500,000 illegal robocalls. The FBI sampled a handful of them, about 10,000, to see whether or not they were legit, which they were, and to validate that the users really didn't say, I want to be bugged by a telemarketer to try to sell me healthcare, which they hadn't been. And now the FBI is going after these guys. I'm sorry, the FCC is going after these guys. So hopefully they'll do that, and hopefully they'll go after a whole bunch more, and maybe have people understand that if they do that, they run the risk of large fines, and so therefore they need to kind of change their business model. We shall see. Here's another one. It's kind of an interesting strategy. This guy lost $12 million in cryptocurrency because apparently he didn't have great security, and someone stole his credentials and were able to use them and steal his cryptocurrency. He was a consumer of LifeLock, and LifeLock, supposedly reimburses you or helps you fix the problem. Well, when it comes to cryptocurrency, fixing the problem is going to be really hard. So the answer is, gee, give me some money. The policy does have a cap of $1 million, but obviously they are trying to go off and figure out how to wiggle out of it. The court believes some of their story about why they want to wiggle out of it, but not other parts of the story. So I think we shall see here where this goes. But I do think that this will at least give ammunition to the lawyers who are trying to go after these carriers like LifeLock in the case of cryptocurrency attacks, because it's pretty hard to get the money back. So it's kind of interesting. On to the area of education. If you are thinking about getting a SOC 2, excuse me, and you are a software service company, it's not easy. And these guys have come up with some tips, which I think are very legitimate tips. And this is really separate and independent from whether you think there's a lot of value in a SOC 2 or don't think there's a lot of value in a SOC 2. I think the big issue there is from a marketing standpoint, do you have to do it or not do it? And if you do have to do it, then you might as well do it in an optimal way. There's a lot of ways that you can streamline it, make it life a lot easier for you. And make the possibility of getting a SOC 2 a whole lot simpler and less expensive, and shorter time window too. So a lot of times that's important too. With the war going on between Russia and Ukraine right now, we don't know in terms of cyber attacks, but what we have heard is that various groups like Anonymous and Conti are fighting each other. It does appear that at least some Russian websites have been taken down. We haven't seen this escalate, but if it does, understand that there's likely to be significant collateral damage, because neither side really cares about collateral damage. So you might want to look at this dark reading article. And if you haven't already thought about these things and haven't thought about enhancing what you're doing right now in terms of preparing for a potential cyber attack, now would be a good time to go do that. In the area of breaches this week, freight forwarder expeditors shut down global operations. They're a $10 billion company. And unfortunately, right now the supply chain is a real challenge. So the last thing we need is one of these freight forwarders shutting down. This happened a week ago, and they're still down. For the most part, they're slowly coming back up, but they're still down for the most part. So not a good thing. And the Axis Camera Company has told us that they shut down preemptively a whole bunch of systems after they got hit by a cyber attack. They did say that lessened the damage. So they're hoping that they will be back up sooner. That points to, though, the question about how quickly you can detect a cyber attack and how quickly you can respond. So you don't really have a lot of time. So you want to have these things they call playbooks typically, or run books, so that and where possible, you want these things to be automated. So if this event occurs, and you can do this and this and this, so that you can shut down in a matter of seconds to stop the spread of things. Cookware giant Meijer says that several thousand of their employees' data has been stolen as a result of a ransomware attack. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of data theft, data exfiltration as a result of ransomware attacks. So from this perspective, that's not a big surprise, but nonetheless, they said that the attack started in October. They detected it around December 1st. This is the end of February, almost March now, and they're just now reporting it. That's not a great thing. It probably violates state law in any number of states. So there will be fines and lawsuits over that just by itself. Moving on to this week's blog post. Credit Suisse, who is a bank that caters to, some people would say, less than honorable individuals. Others would say they're just very rich people. An insider, obviously, although they haven't said it's an insider, but it's clear it's an insider, dumped the dirty laundry of about 30,000 customers. And Credit Suisse is not in great shape. It's had a whole bunch of legal problems. They're under criminal indictment right now. and they agreed many years ago to any number of actions they were going to take to go improve their compliance with know your customer rules. It seems pretty clear that their know your customer rule says if the bank account is large, then we know you as your customer. And if the bank account is not quite so large, then we'll maybe think about whether you're reputable or not. This is not good news for them, but it's certainly not anything that they did intentionally. This is something a disgruntled insider, or perhaps ex-insider, we don't know which, did. And that's something, this insider threat is something that's valuable to understand, because there's a lot of people who are unhappy in the world. And if they choose to take it out on you, that's not a great thing. The IRS has been working to reduce fraud in the IRS, tax refund business and other areas. So they have improved how they go vet a user. But of course, when that comes, it's also inconvenient. And some people complain to their Congress critters. Congress critters said, well, why don't you use login.gov? Of course, login.gov doesn't have any security. So the IRS said, yeah, I don't really think that's a good idea. One of the complaints about the system that they're using is run by a company out of Virginia, I believe, called ID.me. And they said, well, why doesn't the government run it? Well, the reason why the government doesn't run it is because the government is, shall we say, somewhat challenged anytime they need to move adeptly. And certainly identity verification is not something that's going to be a static thing. So they went with a private company. This private company is used by somewhere around 20 or 30 states already, and a whole bunch of federal agencies. It's not like an unknown entity, but people say, oh, it's a private company. Oh my God. So, I don't have much of a concern about that part of it. But the other thing to understand is that login.gov, which is the system that the Congress critters say that they should use, and legitimately, if the system works, that's not a bad idea to have a single government-run system. But login.gov is powered by a different private company, LexisNexis. So there's a lot of similarity there. Part of it is that Congress has chosen not to fund login.gov, and they also haven't really, they said, gee, you ought to go do that. You ought to go use it, but there's no penalty like, gee, if you don't implement this by June 1st, you won't get no more money. I promise by May 29th, everybody will have it working. Not a problem. It's just that it's not a priority because there's no consequences of not doing it. Moving on to the world of stalking, as we sometimes do, Apple AirTag seems to be the new go-to solution for stalkers. I don't think this was Apple's intent, but it seems to be the result. And it also seems to be that no matter what Apple does, the stalkers seem to be either one step ahead of them or get one step ahead of them as soon as Apple does something. And so they're trying. Their most recent suggestion is, well, we're going to go put a warning that says stalking people is illegal. And I'm sure that will definitely help stop people, because I'm sure the people who are stalking other people didn't realize that was illegal. So we shall see, but Apple keeps trying. They're clearly not winning the war at this time, and they're clearly not winning the PR war, which is to Apple even more important. And for this week's Security News Bites, scammers have figured out how to fake out facial biometrics. I think there's a lot of stuff around facial biometrics that make it a challenge to do it right. And here we have an example of where that is becoming problematic. Next, Russia's invasion of Ukraine threatens the IT industry because there are a lot of tech companies in Ukraine, a lot of contract software development shops in Ukraine, a whole bunch of things that are technology related that are either in Ukraine or in Russia. Right now, I don't think would be a great time to go off and either buy or use Russian software, right? If you think about the supply chain attack problem, what happens if the most recent update that you got from this Russian software company, like Kaspersky, for example, one of the well-known Russian antivirus companies, is malicious. It's not because Gene Kaspersky is a bad guy, although some people say he is. It may be because the government forced him to go do that. So I think at this point, it's a bit of a challenge, but I think companies need to go look at their software supply chain and see whether or not there's any Russian or Ukrainian components there. And if they are, figure out how to go protect themselves. As this war moves on, Anonymous has declared cyber war on Russia. And we all know that sometimes anonymous attacks fizzle. So we don't know what's really going to come out of this. But what we do know is that a number of Russian websites are down. That may be preemptive on the part of the government, or it may not be preemptive. And it may be that the folks at Anonymous are having some degree of success. On the other hand, the Conti ransomware team has said, well, if you go attack Mother Russia, then we're going to go attack you. Like, somehow that's different than what they do every day. But we have this tit for tat kind of thing here, war in the cyber arena, in addition to the physical kinetic war. So, and it's likely that the cyber war is more likely to affect most of us than the kinetic war, unless we have operations in Russia or in Ukraine. Clearly, if you have operations in Russia, or if you have customers in Russia, that's a problem with all the sanctions that are going on worldwide. That's going to be a big headache for folks. And we are seeing people, just from a PR standpoint, unwinding these things really, really quickly. I mean, like the lawyers on K Street in DC who have lobbying contracts with folks in Russia. I mean, they are just jumping ship. They're just abandoning and not worrying about the legal consequences of that, because I'm guessing that courts are probably not going to be favorable to Russian companies coming in and saying, well, you had a contract to represent us and lobby for us, and gee, just because we started a war doesn't mean that you shouldn't lobby for us. So I think from a PR standpoint, from a cybersecurity standpoint, you need to go look at your connections to Russia and Ukraine and see whether you need to make any changes. And then lastly, Oracle has been trying to play with the big boys for years. The government back a long time ago, the CIA created this private top secret cloud that was built by Amazon. It was sole source. It was about a $10 billion contract. And when the Pentagon decided they were going to go kind of do that also, of course, they couldn't just clone what the CIA was doing, because everybody has to go reinvent the wheel in the government and waste our tax dollars. So they created their own vehicle. The three folks who wind up on the short list were Oracle, Microsoft, and Amazon. Ultimately, the Pentagon awarded it to Microsoft, and ultimately the courts invalidated that contract. And finally, the government, the Pentagon, said, this dog is just not going to hunt. We're just going to abandon this, and they're going to start over. So they're years and years and years behind. But at the same time, they still haven't awarded that contract. So who knows when they will. In the meantime, Oracle just won a much smaller contract, but still it's about $1 billion contract to do some work in the top secret arena for the Air Force. So yay for Oracle. Larry Ellison definitely needs the money because he's not rich enough and doesn't fly to the moon or wherever billionaires fly to when they get bored. And now they can say, yes, we have a top secret contract, which is great news for them. I don't know whether that will really make much of a difference in terms of them winning any other contracts, but it might. So, and it certainly makes them, gives them some PR to go play with. So that's what we have for today. Obviously, if you have any questions, as always, please reach out to us. We thank you for listening. And until next week, be safe.
Turnkey Cybersecurity and Privacy Solutions offers the complete cybersecurity program for small to medium-sized businesses. They include everything needed to secure your business and meet compliance requirements. Visit our website at turnkeycybersecurityandprivacysolutions.com to learn more.